Today's podcast is presented by Podgo. Podgo is the easiest way for you to monetize your podcast, providing podcasters with a flat rate for ad space so you always know how much you get when you include an ad from Podgo. Apply today to become a member and immediately be connected with advertisers that fit your audience. That's podgo.co at podgo.co. And be sure to add our podcast, Next Best Bet, in the How Did You Hear About Podgo section of the application. Now, on to episode 67 of the Next Best Bet. Brett, we have had NHL, NBA, MLB. Over the weekend, I had a pretty good weekend. How about you?
Yeah, well, I won on Sunday. I was actually looking at wedding venues, so I didn't get to watch. I didn't get to post any pics. One of my venues was in New Jersey, so I got a bet in. And I won on Sunday, so that made up for a little bit of my losses there on episode 65.
You mean episode 66. Let's jump
Oh,
back into hindsight with Higgins now and talk about how we did last episode. And Brett, you're right. You had a little bit of a rough go going 0 for 4.
yeah, well, I heard you got hot after your offer, so I'm hoping a little bit of that magic rubs off on me.
Hopefully you can ride out that hump a little bit. And that win you said today looks like it did a little good. But yeah, Cubs, Toronto, both baseball bets no good. Pacers -3. They got shocked. It was TJ Warren's slump night because he responded in the game after and played fantastic, but not in that one. And then Jets money line, Calgary won that one to finish off the series in the NHL. So an 0 for 4, Brett. I did a little better. I went 2 and 2. So I think I broke out slightly ahead. Atlanta money line -135, my pick of the pod. That did hit. And then Flyers +105. That game was against Washington, and the Philadelphia Flyers have just been playing great in the bubble. They actually secured that number 1 seed with a win over the Lightning on Saturday as well. My 2 losses, Yankees -1.5 and Mavericks money line. Maybe we'll hear some of these team names again later on, though, as we get into our bets, though, Brett.
Yeah, we definitely will. And let's head over to Beginners Boulevard. Today's term, a tout.
A tout is an individual that sells his or her bets for advice. Now, Brett, technically we are not touts because we're not selling our information. Our podcast is free. Our picks are free. We are just more starting a conversation, creating a community of sports bettors that share the knowledge that they have.
Yeah, I mean, you and I like to talk sports and we like to bet on sports. So we're just here sharing some knowledge, sharing some thoughts, sharing some news. Some people follow these touts, and I just don't think they're very transparent with all their wins and losses. And, you know, that's part of the fun of our podcast. We tell you when we lose and we celebrate our victories for sure.
Yes, try to make sure if you do ever follow a tout to find out what their record has been and if they are a net positive bettor and what their statistics really are, because sometimes you want to make sure that you're getting what you pay for. I mean, if you're going to be paying for picks, you hope that you're going to earn that money back in your winnings.
Definitely important to note that.
Yes, let's jump into the MLB though, Brett, because we have a large slate of games. The St. Louis Cardinals are still postponed. They're not going to be playing on Monday either against the Pittsburgh Pirates. But there are some other teams that have had some interesting news happen with them. Not necessarily COVID related, but the Oakland A's and the Houston Astros, they had a little incident on Sunday where uh, Laureano was hit by a pitch and then decided to charge the Astros dugout.
Yeah, that was a wild moment. I'm sure all our listeners have seen it, but you mentioned there will probably be some fallout to this in terms of people missing games, Higgins.
Yes, there were punches thrown from the video that I saw at least, and there should be repercussions to players that took part in this, but those punishments have not been handed out. And so it's part of why I am making one of my MLB picks, which is going to be the Los Angeles Angels -1.5 alternate line plus 200. Now, the normal run line is Oakland minus 1.5 at plus 115, and the Angels being given 1.5 runs at minus 135. But since there haven't been punishments that have been handed out yet, I expect those will be there by game time tomorrow, and there will be certain players like Laureano that are suspended. So I'm going to flip the roles because I think that there's going to be some large line movement here and go with Angels minus 1.5 plus 200.
I just gotta ask, like, I think the sports books saw what happened today. You don't think they prepared for that at all, or nothing like that?
I think it's partly factored in already, but I don't think you can necessarily guarantee and make that line that there's going to be suspensions yet when they haven't been handed out yet. You don't know the extent of what they're going to be. You don't know if it's just going to be Laureano or if there's going to be other players on the A's that are being suspended as well. I think this is a chance for potential big line movement. Yes, I'm taking this chance before anything happens by saying Angels minus 1.5, but I'm going to sit comfortably with it because also it's not going to really be a pitcher's duel. I mean, we got Sean Manaea, who has an ERA of over 8, and then he's facing Julio Teheran, who has an ERA of 6.75. Neither of these guys have gotten a win yet. It's going to be a battle of the bats, and if you're taking a guy like Laureano out of the Oakland lineup, I'm going to give it to the team that has Mike Trout.
Well, I think it's definitely fair to bet against cold pitching. I tried to bet on hot pitching in the last episode. It burned me. So this episode, I'm betting against hot pitching. The Milwaukee Brewers and the Minnesota Twins face off tomorrow. I'm going over 8.5 runs. It just feels like a game that's going to end 6-4. That's just where this game's going to end. I don't know who's going to win. I don't know why it's going to be 6-4, but it'll be 6-4. And like I said, both pitchers have sub 1 ERAs, Dobnak and Hauser. So that'll be an interesting game to watch.
Yes, it will. I was looking at this game. I actually have part of it in a parlay that I'm going to be doing. I decided to pick a bit of a long shot parlay to mention on this podcast as well. That is Atlanta, Washington, Chicago White Sox, and Minnesota all money line, and it's plus 1249. So very long shot odds, but I like each of these. Minnesota, they've been playing a little bit better, and even though Milwaukee's got a great lineup, they're 1-4 at home. So I'm gonna take Minnesota, who's 10-6 on the season. Washington, they're undefeated on the road, and the Mets have struggled at home as well. And then we have the Chicago White Sox, who are going to be in Detroit, 6-2 on the road. Chicago's been playing really well recently, getting 6 of their 8 wins on the road. And then lastly, the Atlanta Braves, they're going to be in Philadelphia. And I'd say this one might worry me the most because it's against Aaron Nola with Philadelphia. But the Braves, they're 11-6. The Phillies, they're 4-6. And I just think the better team's going to come out on top.
Yeah, I mean, good luck. Like you said, it's a long shot parlay, so I hope it cashes because that would be a lot of fun. But you know, when you bet 4 teams in one in one go, it's hard, man.
The hardest part about this also is that there's not really going to be an ability to hedge because all of these games are happening pretty close to the same time. The Twins is the latest start time for me at 5:10 p.m. on the Pacific, on the West Coast, and the Atlanta Braves Phillies, that's the earliest start at 3:05. So it's going to be hard to try to hedge this if something looks like it's going well and then you want to protect yourself. So I don't think I'm going to have that opportunity. But you never know what happens in a baseball game because you have to get 3 outs every inning. And Brett, our money line magic proves that can be hard sometimes.
Oh man, how about that Baltimore Orioles Washington National game? Now, Orioles won 5-3, but how they scored all 5 runs was pretty incredible. Baltimore entered the 8th inning down 3 with just 2 hits, Higgins.
Just 2 hits in the 8th inning, Brett, and then they went on quite the rally. Started off with a Valleca home run to get 1 run on the board.
Yeah, and then the next batter, also a pinch hitter, Pedro Severino hits a home run. Anthony Santander hits a home run, 3 home runs in the eighth for the Orioles as they beat their, I guess it's a crosstown rival, cross state rival. I don't know. What would you call that?
We can call it a neighboring rival. You can't really say Washington's in Maryland, so I guess it would be a. It's not even a neighboring state because DC is not a state, so they're next door
Geographic
neighbors,
rivals.
geographic rivals. There we go. But yeah, some big bats by Baltimore. The Orioles at 7-7, they are really surprising some people on how they are performing this year. No one really expected them to be 500 right now.
Yeah, they're definitely surprising some teams. I mean, the Nats have not played very well either. Obviously, the Scherzer injury came in to some of that, but Baltimore's been a surprise. How about the Marlins? They've been a huge surprise also.
They really have, and it's good to say that this Orioles game happened on Saturday, and they took the first two games off the defending World Series champions, and then on Sunday, the game got suspended, but it was 5-2. The Orioles were leading that one as well.
There you go. So they scored five again in an inning.
Absolutely. Let's jump into the NBA though, Brett, as it looks like some teams in playoff positions are starting to be decided. More teams are getting eliminated. The Eastern Conference, 8 playoff teams have been decided, but seeding is up for grabs. And then on the Western Conference, 7 have been decided, but the 8th seed is up for grabs, and not everyone's been eliminated. And then there's some other seeding shuffling that's going on as well with these last 5 days.
Yeah, but I think the real talk of the bubble's got to be the Phoenix Suns, Higgins. They are on fire, 5-0.
5-0. They are playing fantastic. And how about Draymond Green getting fined $50,000 for saying that you need to get Devin Booker out of Phoenix?
You know our buddy set that up. There's no way it wasn't a mosque production there.
Devin Booker has been playing fantastic. I don't think Phoenix is going to be kicking him out of there anytime soon, especially with DeAndre Ayton developing. I think that they might have a bit of a future with that Phoenix team. And who knows, they might be able to sneak into the playoffs.
Well, Vegas is giving them a ton of respect. -4 versus OKC. On the money line, Phoenix is a -185 favorite. OKC at +165. And Higgins, I gotta say, I think Phoenix is getting a little too much respect here. I don't know. OKC's been the better team all year. Like, this line surprised me, and I'm just taking OKC in the points. I'm not really overthinking this one. OKC is the best team in the league against the spread. So even if they lose the game, maybe they lose by 3 and I win my bet.
Yeah, I mean, against the spread, OKC is 41-25. Phoenix 32-35-1. So, I mean, the statistics from this season show that you should be leaning OKC here, but I agree. That's a ton of respect that the bookkeepers are giving the Suns. Who knows? They could always just keep riding that hot hand, but Devin Booker versus Chris Paul is going to be quite the matchup to watch here, and who knows what that impact's going to be like.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a disrespect to Phoenix thing. It's a respect to OKC thing. I just don't think they should be laying 4 in this spot.
Now, another thing in terms of respect, in terms of how teams have been playing recently, it's kind of why I'm picking the Mavericks money line against the Utah Jazz. Now, the Mavericks are 7-point underdogs here. They're being given 7 points, and so at money line, they're plus 245. And to be honest, I just love that because since going in the bubble, Dallas has seemed to play really well. They beat Milwaukee on Saturday in overtime. They did have that loss to the Clippers, but the Jazz, they're 1-5 over their past 5 games, including 2 recent losses to Denver and San Antonio. I think as long as Luka and Kristaps Porzingis play, I mean, Doncic did take a few hits to the jaw. It looked like he was banged up a little bit from that Milwaukee game, but the Mavs are sitting in the 7th seed right now. They could potentially fight their way all the way up to that 4th seed where the Houston Rockets are at. So every game can potentially matter in terms of who you want to match up against in these playoffs. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see Dallas out there at full strength tomorrow.
Yeah, I I think most teams are just looking to get through this healthy. They're not as concerned with seeding, but I see your point for sure. It'll be interesting to see how Dallas and Utah play that dynamic. Resting players on back to backs versus playing for seeding purposes.
Plus, not to mention, Donovan Mitchell's also listed as day to day. So, I mean, it's not like Luka Doncic is the only point guard that's going to be potentially not full strength. It'll be interesting to see. I just really like how Luka's been playing this season. He has been fantastic, and in the bubble, he just seems so at ease right now, even without the fans. Which for many players, I mean, LeBron admitted it himself. It's kind of weird. It's been a really long time since LeBron has played in an empty gym. He said.
I'm. How full do you think his court was at Space Jam? We know MJ had the Space Jam bubble. LeBron had to have one, right?
I would imagine so, but LeBron's always been someone that has brought players in on off-season workouts and played games with them like that. I don't know how restrictive those courts were at the Space Jam facilities, but we'll see. The
Yeah.
other game that's going to be going on Monday is the Lakers versus the Nuggets, and I was looking at this game too. Denver plus 4.5 with the Lakers minus 4.5. I kind of like the Nuggets because the Lakers haven't really surprised me or impressed me much in the bubble yet.
Yeah, Lakers have been struggling. LeBron hinted at some problems, which is a little odd. I don't know. I think the Lakers will turn it on come playoff time. Again, I think the number one goal here for all these teams is get through healthy, but you never know how important seeding is to one particular team, and they're gonna roll out their best lineup every night. Obviously, you got teams like Phoenix; every game matters to them. So, every situation's a little bit different.
We also are in an age where every NBA team is using analytics now, at least in some capacity. And with that has come a large increase in 3 point shots compared to mid range twos. And who knows what those analytics are saying on who these teams would best match up with and trying to position yourself to get that matchup in the playoffs. I mean, analytics have added another aspect to basketball, and it can kind of add for a long con or some strategic chess moves in a sense.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. I'm on a game in the East tomorrow, Toronto, Milwaukee. Milwaukee's 5.5 point favorites, minus 235 on the money line. Toronto's plus 194 on the money line. And I don't know. I think it'll be a close game. So I'm going against the odds here, and I'm saying Toronto wins a close one.
Pascal Siakam's going to have his hands full with Giannis Antetokounmpo, though, so that'll be an interesting matchup to watch.
Yeah, and I think the last game is the matchup most people are excited for because the last time these two teams met, things got heated between the Bubble's best player TJ Warren and Miami's best player Jimmy Butler. So Indiana plays Miami tomorrow. I think there's going to be a lot of excitement around that one. I'm excited to watch it. Indiana's a hot team as well in the bubble, so it'll be a good game no matter what, in my opinion.
Well, and TJ Warren has been on fire, like we have mentioned a few times on this podcast. He played fantastic on Saturday. Jimmy Butler's going to do everything he can try to shut him down, though. It's going to be a very much one-on-one matchup in that sense. So I would not be surprised if we see TJ Warren potentially struggle a little bit, or we'll see if he can shut up Jimmy Butler in a sense. That should be a very entertaining game to watch. I agree, Brett.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'm also looking forward to the NHL playoffs continuing, Higgins. It looks like it's going to start back up the NHL on Tuesday, August 11th.
And we don't have the schedule of who's playing quite yet on Tuesday because as we are recording this, the Columbus Blue Jackets are facing the Toronto Maple Leafs in the final game of the qualifying rounds. But we do have most of the seedings. The winner of that game is going to face off against the Lightning, and the rest of the Eastern Conference is figured out with the Flyers facing off against the Canadiens the Caps against the Islanders, and the Bruins against the Hurricanes. And I'll say firsthand, as a Flyers fan, watching them grab that number one seed was fantastic. They played great hockey against the Lightning on Saturday, and to not have to face the Pittsburgh Penguins and instead get to face the Montreal Canadiens, I love it.
I think it's interesting. Like McDavid went out, Crosby and Malkin went out. Panarin went out with the Rangers. So a lot of these like elite goal scorers went out, and the hot goalies continue to advance in the NHL.
That's a theme of hockey typically, is getting that hot goaltender. I mean, rarely is it going to be these large scoring games. I mean, what's the saying in all sports? Defense wins championships. On the West Coast, it's the Golden Knights that are going to take on the number 12 Blackhawks. So, as controversial as it was to allow the Chicago Blackhawks and the Montreal Canadiens into this expanded playoff format because they have these goalies, sure enough, they ended up winning. Corey Crawford and Carey Price both ended up getting it done for their teams.
Yeah, no, that's huge. In the West, I think there's a hilarious goalie matchup. The Golden Knights traded Robert Lerner to the Blackhawks, and they get to play each other in the first round this year.
That should be a very interesting matchup indeed. I think the Golden Knights should have that, though. Uh, it'll be interesting, though. The other matchups are the Avs versus the Coyotes, the Stars versus the Flames, and the Blues versus the Canucks. So we have some interesting matchups here in terms of some division rivals, some conference rivals, some teams that don't necessarily really like each other. And I think the Caps Islanders on the East is something I'm going to be really looking at. And then the Avs and the Coyotes, that intrigues me as well.
I was betting against the Flames all series, so the Flames winning surprised me. But Dallas is a really good team. I don't know. Maybe the Flames are just a team that maybe it's a Canada's year. They haven't won a cup in forever. It's automatically going to be given out on their home ice. So maybe just the team from Canada takes it home this year.
Brett, I do have to ask you, what was it like for the Jets to disappoint you yet again, but in a different sport than football?
It felt good.
It,
It felt like home.
it felt like how it's supposed to be, what you're used
Yeah,
to.
yeah. Of course, I find myself backing the Jets and being let down again. That's a great point, Higgins. Why do I do this to myself?
Now, are there any teams that you're leaning on or matchups that you think highly favor a certain side? I'd say I like the Golden Knights. I'd say I like the Flyers as a homer pick because I've seen them play some really good hockey. And then that Caps Islanders game, that's a little too tough for me to pick, I think.
Yeah, I mean, the Bruins had the most points in the East, but they're the 4 seed. Maybe they have a little extra motivation here. And then I think Dallas. Dallas has a lot of offense. I like the Stars a little bit as a long shot. I haven't bought into the Avs really all year. I know they've been good, obviously, but they're not a team I've been like, oh, they're gonna win.
Wait, so you like the Dallas Stars even have after you've had the Calgary Flames shove it in your face the past 3 times? You just watched the Jets lose and the Calgary Flames win, and you're still not a believer in that Calgary team.
No, they have 6 letters in their name. 5 or less is what I root for.
Okay, so it's a numbers game.
It's
Gotcha.
a numbers game.
All right, some quick other news and notes. We're gonna jump into the NFL now. Uh, Darius Geis waived from the Washington football team, Brett. Very interesting move here, considering that it's apparently for domestic violence incident.
Yeah, they acted swiftly and they have a lot of depth in their backfield. Obviously, Adrian Peterson's their most notable. Peyton Barber's there. Bryce Love, very talented kid out of Stanford's also there. So there are some other backs, but in terms of fantasy, Higgins, is AP the only guy we can touch in this backfield?
In the backfield, yes. I'd say their wide receiver McLaren is a very good
Oh, I
player.
love McLaurin. Yeah, he's great. Yeah, that's a but yeah, in the backfield, I think AP is the guy. Now that Geis is out of the picture.
And he has shown that he can stand the test of time recently, and he says he still has more in the tank. And if you know Adrian Peterson, you can know that he can do anything he wants, basically. He's a very powerful running back. So I think it would be very interesting to see. I also wouldn't be surprised if Washington goes out and tries to get another signing to get into that backfield. So who knows where they would go with that.
Yeah, I'm Devonta Freeman's out there. Is he an upgrade over AP? He's similar level, I think, right now. AP is obviously first ballot Hall of Famer. I'm not calling Devonta Freeman that, but today's AP and today's Devonta Freeman, who are you taking?
I don't know. I've always been a fan of Devonta Freeman. Honestly, he's burnt me on fantasy a few times though. I've had him when he was with the Falcons for a few different years, and he never quite lived up to the potential that was hoped.
Okay. So jury's out, I guess. I'm not
But
sure.
college football doesn't seem like it is on stable ground either, Brett. I mean, the backfield of Washington, that's unstable, but college football, the MAC just closed down. They decided that they're going to cancel the football season, and I think this could be a mudslide for the rest of the conferences to kind of do the same because as we see more do this, you're going to see a race to not be last, I think.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know exactly what's going to happen, but it seems like the college football season is ending before it gets started. Trevor Lawrence raised some interesting points, I thought. When the players are sent home, the school's not covering their health insurance. Some people aren't in homes where, you can appropriately social distance. And, when you're at school, these football teams, these Power Five football schools will make sure they are keeping you as healthy as possible off the field. So that was an interesting take, and I think it holds a lot of validity. I don't know what the best thing to do is, Higgins. I feel bad for the student athletes, but your number one priority has to be player safety.
Number one priority has to be player safety, and you do also have to think about liability, though. If a player gets sick on campus while classes are all online, then I think that is a very bad look, and it's a very bad case in terms of uh, liability on the university's end of a player catching COVID. I agree with some of Trevor Lawrence's statements in the sense of there are many players that come from cities and areas that it's very difficult to social distance and even potentially get their schoolwork done for online learning. But as unfortunate as that is, that doesn't necessarily mean close contact football and putting these players through that is any safer because there is still those dangers in those sized groups.
Oh, for sure. I think that's the tough part of all of this is no one has all the answers. If someone did, we'd probably be in a much better spot.
I saw the Big Ten is apparently now considering canceling their football season. I think, like I said, it's going to be a bit of a mudslide, and we're going to see some news come out really quickly over the next couple days.
Yeah, we definitely started seeing some reports of that on Sunday night, and we'll follow that along on our social media. I
Do you think there will or there should be a college football season?
It's tough. I do not think there will be. I wouldn't be opposed to spring football if we just decided now, hey, let's figure out a way to get this thing off the ground in the spring. I'm all for it. And then, you have the national championship game end of April and boom, the draft. I That would be okay with me.
Lincoln Riley, the head coach for Oklahoma, he was one of the early proponents saying spring football could be a possibility. The big thing you do have to work with is the NFL and the draft, because there still would need to be time for that NFL draft combine and player evaluations and things of that nature. So a draft would potentially need to be pushed back a little bit, but I think spring football would be possible. There would definitely be interest for it, and who knows where we are in terms of a vaccine and community safety at that point.
Yeah, I think those are all valid points. Another league I'm personally worried about from a fantasy perspective, like how many games are they going to get in, is the NFL. But the Patriots traded for a fifth round pick today, so you know he's the next superstar. So everyone gets to learn Michael Jackson's name because he's going to make it big time. He's going to have a lot of
Brett, I
interceptions.
think everyone already knows the name Michael Jackson.
For the first time I've ever heard
Yeah.
it.
But yeah, here's the Patriots doing what the Patriots do. They sacrifice a low level pick for an actual player that they know that they can put into their system, and watch Michael Jackson's value going to turn into a second or third round compensatory pick that the Patriots are going to get back in like 2 years or something. That's just what they do.
Can they pair Michael Jackson with a Billie Jean? Can we get a Billie Jean in Buffalo?
That would be a funny one. That would be a funny one. Maybe we can work on that. Maybe we can convince a player to change their name legally to Billie Jean.
Billie Jean. He'd either need to be a Bill or on Michael Jackson's team. Those are the only two places he could play.
Very, very interesting indeed. We'll see what else comes out with the NFL. Some last interesting news: the Philadelphia Eagles announced that their linebacker Jatavis Brown retires at the age of 26. Interesting, kind of surprising news from a linebacking core that already was the lowest cap hit of any team in the NFL.
Hmm. Yeah, that is interesting news. I think that we've kind of seen a trend of some linebackers retiring earlier now, but 26 is still pretty young. But I'm glad he's making the decision that's best for him and his family. So good for him.
Yes, he was placed on the reserved retired list. He was supposed to make the veterans minimum $910,000. That's the base salary with a 550,000 guaranteed. Eagles get 900,000 of that back on their salary cap, so they might be able to make a move to replace him still. We'll see how that goes. But Brett, before we get out of here, let's hop into the Levy Lock in Pick of the Pod. Now, you have had honors the past couple of episodes because you were getting the wins. We were doing the golf gentleman's honors. But you know what? I got the win this past episode. So I'm going to start off first here. And I'm going to stick with baseball. Los Angeles Angels -1.5 at +200. And again, this is just a value pick because of the benches clearing brawl that happened after Ramon Laureano of the Oakland A's was hit by the Astros pitcher. He charged the Astros dugout, and there were punches thrown, the benches cleared, and I think that the Oakland A's are going to have punishments that they're going to get on Monday morning that is going to make them have to reshuffle their lineup, maybe reshuffle some other things, and they're going to have to play with a not full team, and someone that is as explosive as Laureano in that lineup is going to be a major hit. I would not be surprised to see a bunch of line movement. So -1.5 at +200, I think, is some great value.
Well, there you go. That's the Higgins POP. And I got your Levy Lock at OKC +4. I just think they're being undervalued against the Phoenix Suns. I think OKC deserves more respect, and they're the best team in the NBA against the spread.
Yes, they are, and we will see how those go. Make sure to follow us on social media at MBB Pod on Twitter, at Next Best Bet on Instagram, and the Next Best Bet Facebook page. We'll be giving out some picks, especially some NHL picks, once we find out what games are going to be happening on Tuesday and Wednesday before we have our next episode, episode 68, which will come out on Thursday. This has been episode 67 of the Next Best Bet. For Brett, I'm Jake. We'll talk to you later.